Today, the World Cup is one of the most watched events on Earth. But this story did not begin with giant screens, global sponsors, or modern stadiums. It began with a dream, with ships crossing the ocean, with a bold decision made in the shadow of an economic crisis, and with the first chapter of football's greatest stage. The year was 1930. The place was Uruguay. But before we arrive there, we need to understand how football reached that moment. Football was born in Britain in the 19th century. The British saw the game as their own creation, and for a long time, they naturally considered themselves the center of the football world. But by the beginning of the 20th century, the game had already moved far beyond the island, across Europe, across South America, in port cities, in working-class neighborhoods, and in schoolyards. The same game was being played. Football was no longer just a British game. As the sport continued to grow, it needed an international structure. So, in 1904, FIFA was founded in Paris. The British were not at the heart of its creation, because in their eyes, football already belonged to them. But the rest of the world had started to speak the language of the game in its own way. At the time, the biggest stage for national teams was the Olympic Games. Football had been part of the Olympic program since 1908. But there was one major problem. The Olympics were meant for amateur athletes. Football, however, was becoming increasingly professional. That meant some of the best players in the world could not play on the biggest international stage available to national teams. And this was exactly where FIFA's idea began. A real world championship, open to everyone, built only for football. The most important figure behind this idea was Jules Rimet. Rimet was a French football administrator, but he did not want football to remain the game of Europe, or the game of only a few powerful nations. He believed this sport could bring countries from every part of the world onto the same pitch. The Paris Olympics in 1924 and the Amsterdam Olympics in 1928 made that belief even stronger. Because Uruguay came to Europe and showed everyone that football did not belong only to the old continent. This small South American nation challenged the world, and by winning 2 Olympic gold medals in a row, Uruguay forced everyone to take notice. And finally, FIFA made its decision. There would be a World Cup. There were several candidates for the first tournament: Italy, the Netherlands, Sweden, Spain, and Uruguay. Uruguay had an important advantage. It was the Olympic champion of 1924 and 1928, and in 1930, the country would celebrate the 100th anniversary of its independence. On top of that, Uruguay made a very strong offer. They agreed to cover the travel and accommodation costs of the countries that would take part in the tournament. Today, that may sound unbelievable. But at the time, taking part in the World Cup was not just a sporting decision. For European teams, going to Uruguay meant a long journey by sea. And the world was still under the effects of the 1929 economic crisis. Clubs did not want to release their players for weeks. Federations were worried about the costs. And some countries protested the decision to hold the tournament in South America. FIFA had imagined a larger tournament, but in the end, only 13 countries went to Uruguay. From Europe, France, Belgium, Yugoslavia, and Romania took part in the tournament. Most of the other teams came from the Americas: Uruguay, Argentina, Brazil, Chile, Peru, Bolivia, Paraguay, Mexico, and the United States. For some of the European teams, the World Cup really was a journey. The French, Belgian, and Romanian squads set off for South America on the same ship. And there were not only footballers on that ship. The trophy of the tournament was crossing the ocean with them. That trophy had been designed by the French sculptor Abel Lafleur. Years later, it would become known as the Jules Rimet Trophy. Small in size, but enormous in meaning, it was the symbol of a story whose true scale no one could yet imagine. Uruguay was not only preparing a team for this tournament, it was also preparing a stage. In the capital city of Montevideo, Estadio Centenario was being built as a tribute to the country's 100th year of independence. But things did not go as planned. The stadium was not ready for the opening of the tournament, so the first matches were played in other stadiums. The first match in World Cup history was played on July 13th, 1930. France faced Mexico. In the 19th minute, a French footballer named Lucien Laurent sent the ball into the net. At that moment, the players on the pitch may not have realized it, but the first goal in World Cup history had just been scored. France won the match 4-1, and with that, the World Cup had begun. But the first tournament was not a flawless organization like the World Cup we know today. The rules, the structure, the refereeing, and the playing conditions were far from today's standards. One of the clearest examples happened in the match between France and Argentina. Argentina were leading 1-0. France were pushing for an equalizer. In the final moments of the match, the French were moving forward in a dangerous attack when the referee ended the game too early. The protests were immediate. The referee realized his mistake and called the players back onto the pitch. The match was played for a few more minutes, but the rhythm had already been broken. Argentina won 1-0. In the group stage of the tournament, 4 teams stood out: Argentina, Yugoslavia, Uruguay, and the United States. The semifinals ended with a strange symmetry. Argentina beat the United States 6-1. Uruguay also defeated Yugoslavia 6-1. And so, the first World Cup final brought together 2 of South America's greatest rivals, Uruguay and Argentina. This was not just a football match. It was a reckoning between the 2 sides of the Rio de la Plata. On the day of the final, thousands of fans came to Montevideo from Argentina. They arrived by boat, by ship, and with great excitement. The tension in the city was so high that the Belgian referee of the final, John Langenus, asked for special security guarantees. Because the result of this match would not only decide the trophy, it would also decide the pride of 2 nations. Before the match had even started, a dispute broke out. Both teams wanted the final to be played with the ball they had brought. As a solution, a coin toss was held. The first half was played with Argentina's ball. The second half was played with Uruguay's ball. Uruguay started the final well and took the lead, but Argentina came back. They ended the first half ahead, 2-1. There was silence inside the Centenario. Uruguay was at home, in front of its own people, in the 100th year of its independence. And now, it was facing the danger of losing the first World Cup final. But the second half turned into a completely different story. Uruguay first found the equalizer, then they took the lead. Argentina resisted, but the pressure from the home side continued to grow. And at the end of the match, the scoreboard read, Uruguay 4, Argentina 2. Uruguay was the first champion in World Cup history. Uruguay had already reached the top at the Olympics in 1924 and 1928. Now, it had also written its name at the top of football's new world. But the importance of the 1930 World Cup was not only about who won the trophy. This tournament showed that football was no longer a local game. Teams crossing oceans, political calculations, economic crisis, national pride, refereeing controversies, new stadiums being built, and the first step of an idea, that would one day capture the attention of millions. All of it was part of the same story. What began in Uruguay in 1930 was not just a tournament. It was football's greatest doorway to the world. And once that door opened, the World Cup would never again be just football.